Thanks for joining the webinar today related to FormsConnected, Pulse, and Autodesk Build cost management. My name is Tom Coombs, and I am the director here at IMAGINiT Technologies. Alongside of me, I have Lisa Stein, one of our construction engagement engineers. We're providing you an overview of integrated workflows between FormsConnected and Autodesk Build for cost management. This webinar is being recorded, as Lori said. For those who could not be in attendance today, feel free to list your questions via chat as we proceed. Both Lisa and I will do our best in answering your questions and hope that you find this webinar informational and can accelerate your business growth. So today we'll be discussing the business impacts around data utilization, as this is impacting all industries. How data directly impacts your business results, how technology can accelerate your growth in this very demanding environment. In addition, we'll be demonstrating the integrated workflows between FormsConnected and Autodesk Build cost management, leveraging IMAGINiT Pulse. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about the data utilization gap. Based on what we have heard with all customers across the AEC, construction, and manufacturing, the data utilization gap continues to be a huge challenge. Companies have several internal and external systems and workflows that must be integrated to drive the business results. Our customers are constantly looking for ways to improve data acquisition for field resources, making it easier for them to complete their job. And quite frankly, improve the processes to lower costs and increase revenue. Elimination of these manual processes will help the data utilization gap. But the business challenges continue to be data silos, data skills, and data quality. Many of our customers continue to leverage desktop tools like Excel and never get the data back into the core process to make the sense of these changes or alterations. And I suspect that your business may not be too far from this, which means that if your competition's improving in these spaces, we need to at a faster rate. And we need to strive to leverage technology to simplify our business process, drive efficiency through the organization, and better collaborate internally and externally. You know, in addition to capturing data at the earliest point of entry within the value chain, will be to ensure data accuracy and efficiency to drive results, which is where IMAGINiT can help. And then there, of course, is AI. As our competition continues to race towards leveraging artificial intelligence to drive efficiency, lower cost, and improve customer satisfaction, we need to as well. And artificial intelligence will only be as good as the data that we can capture. So collecting this data and leveraging machine language and artificial intelligence to help facilitate the dialogue will continue to drive positive results. So here at IMAGINiT Technologies, as we engage with our 25,000 customers across the construction industry, one thing has become abundantly clear. We are at the forefront of process revolution. This isn't just about incremental improvements. This is a fundamental shift in how projects are planned, delivered, and sustained from the earliest stages of design and pre-construction all the way to field execution, supply chain coordination, and even long-term sustainability efforts. Across the construction landscape, whether in commercial, infrastructure, industrial, or residential projects, firms are moving toward fully integrated, data-driven processes. So traditional workflows that operate in silos are being replaced by interconnected systems that enable real-time collaboration, seamless data exchange, and better informed decision-making, whether it's harnessing building information management, BIM, and virtual design and construction, VDC, and development, driving smarter cost estimation and schedule optimization in pre-construction, or ensuring safety and quality through proactive field inspections and compliance tracking throughout the entire project lifecycle is transforming. So as we partner with our customers and the digital transformation journey, it's clear those who embrace the process revolution are setting new standards in construction. We've seen firsthand how this revolution is helping customers reduce risk, improve predictability, control costs, and accelerate project delivery. But more than that, it's enabled them to become more agile, more responsive to owners and stakeholders, and more prepared for the evolving challenges that's in our built environment. So at IMAGINiT and Rand Worldwide, we support this revolution in 4 key pillars. Number 1, industry advisory, providing the expertise through process mapping, architectural reviews, risk assessments, white papers, etc. Number 2, harnessing technology, partnering with leading platforms like Autodesk, which you'll see demoed here shortly, Bluebeam, Twinmotion, Leica, and others to drive standardization, integration, and automation through your project lifecycle. Number 3, amplifying productivity, delivering purpose-built solutions around things like IMAGINiT Clarity, which is developed primarily for the AEC industry as a BIM integration tool. Utilities, a suite of tools that extend the Autodesk functionality, enabling batch processing, advanced file management, etc. IMAGINiT Pulse, which you'll hear about later as well, is a cloud-based platform that synchronizes people, process, and data, integrated into core systems that's within your infrastructure, like an ERP, CRM, PLM tools. IMAGINiT FormsConnected, which you'll also hear about today, is digitizing and standardizing the construction forms for consistent and paperless workflows. And Productivity Now, an e-learning platform that really ensures your teams are staying current with the tools, workflows, industry best practices. Last but not least, the last pillar, we're all focused on this, continuous improvement, supporting the firms with feedback loops, ongoing support, and performance management. So the firms that embrace this process revolution are setting new standards for construction excellence. They're improving predictability, controlling cost, enhancing quality, and delivering projects more efficiently. But beyond that, they're becoming more agile, more responsive to stakeholders, and better prepared for the challenges of the future built environment. So let's dive into FormsConnected. So what is FormsConnected? It's a software as a service platform that helps businesses digitize and streamline their fieldwork and data collection. It provides tools to create custom, mobile-friendly forms to replace the paper-based workflows for tasks like inspections, work orders, invoices, safety reports. The FormsConnected application's available for all your mobility devices, smartphones, tablets, and even computers. So FormsConnected is about capturing the data when it's needed most, right at the point that the issue is resolved. Leveraging mobility services, we have the power to capture the data in the field and avoid paper-based processes that often get lost or forgotten. We can ensure compliance and accuracy through the use of conditional logic and real-time search. We can get signatures right from the customer at that time or track it via GPS to ensure accuracy. Not to mention, we can also route approvals all from the convenience of your handheld device. But the best part is the platform is very simple to use. So a lot of us ask, well, how do you get started? To get started, to build a solution with FormsConnected, the image on the left is the form designer. It's built for both mobile and PDF output. Simple drag and drop interface. The designer has the ability to capture signatures, like I mentioned earlier, insert photos and videos, capture GPS coordinates. We can dispatch technicians, conduct calculations, utilize drop-down, checkbox response type. Even the text boxes include voice to text, which makes data entry so much easier, and plus more. It's a code-free tool that helps accelerate your field and office users, and you do not need to be a software engineer to build the forms. The image in the middle is really the mobile solution. Once the mobile interface is designed, the designer can publish to whom or all they wish to with a click of a button. The user in the field will get notified with a new release, and they can go use it immediately. Remember, the solution in the field can have a workflow from one mobile user to another or even an office worker, so the options are actually endless. And the image on the right is an example of the output. The mobile solution will generate a PDF for the contents you captured out in the field. In addition, each field element on the form that you are collecting can be integrated into another system of record via the APIs. In this example, and what Lisa will show, is with an integration into Autodesk Construction Cloud, specifically around cost. The integrations can also be bi-directional in real time. So since FormsConnected is a business critical platform and has over 1,000 integrations for your use, the integrations can be as simple as a spreadsheet to a more complex integration into an ERP or a CRM application. Remember, we're trying to avoid the data being underutilized. So Pulse helps feed the data captured in the field into a core system to run your business and be more efficient. In the example that you'll see as we're about to show, Lisa will be showing how we integrate FormsConnected with Autodesk Construction Cloud, leveraging IMAGINiT Pulse for a seamless, reliable integration. Hopefully, this introduction got you grounded on FormsConnected and Pulse and gives you an idea on how this technology can be used within your enterprise. So, without further ado, Lisa, I'll pass the audience to you to demonstrate FormsConnected with the Autodesk Construction Cloud around cost. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right, so as Tom mentioned, I am a construction engagement engineer over here at IMAGINiT, and I'm super excited to walk you through a couple of integrated workflows that I'm going to highlight today. And these are specifically around capturing material delivery information. So, you know, what's being delivered, what is the unit cost of that item, what is the unit type, any kind of description, any kind of information that we need around those specific line items. And instead of having those manually entered into paper reports and then having to go to the job trailer and then upload them and then put them in Dropbox and then have it so that we can, you know, manually put them into our financial planning software, we're going to do that in an automated capacity. So I'm really excited to kind of walk you through that. But first, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just talking more about the challenge. And so really in my role, I'm talking to clients every single day, folks just like you guys, all different types of organizations. But these are things that I hear quite often, and I come from industry too. So during my time in construction, these are all things that I encountered on my own. But when we think about construction projects today, one of the very, very largest challenges isn't just the work that's happening out on site, it's the way that the information is moving or that it's actually failing to move between the field and the office. So when we consider the field side, we have our field inspectors and maybe our superintendents. Those folks are all still often tracking time, materials, deliveries, all of those things on paper. And so those reports tend to be inconsistent across crews and projects. Sometimes details are missed. And by the time that they reach the office, they might be illegible. I know I don't have very good handwriting, and I think I'm not alone in that. Those forms might also be incomplete, and they might just be lost altogether. You know, if we throw stuff in our truck, it's often really easy to just lose sight of it, and it never gets into the right hands in the office. And then when we consider the office side, we've got project managers, we have engineers. Those folks are left trying to make sense of the forms that they're receiving from the field folks, right? And so they often don't get the information until days or even weeks after those deliveries have been incurred on the job site. So they spend hours filling in missing project details, there's line item numbers, there's costs, right? All of that they have to manually enter into financial systems. So not only does this create a lot of rework, right? We have a lot of re-entry, we're recording that information in the field, and then we have to re-record it in the office setting, but it also tends to introduce errors and delays that ripple through budgets, invoices, and forecasting. So this disconnection between field and office leads to a lot of real business impact. So let's talk a little bit more about that. All right, so again, this disconnection leads to limited visibility into real-time costs and approvals, right? By the time the information finally makes its way from the field to the office, if it even makes it there at all, that data can already be outdated. And then that lag is going to prevent project managers, other executives in our organizations from making informed decisions in the moment when those decisions matter the most. We're also looking at that disconnection leading directly to missed or unbilled items. So when reports are incomplete or they get lost in the shuffle of just day-to-day work, revenue literally can just slip through the cracks. And so those lost material deliveries, those labor hours, or those equipment costs don't just create admin headaches, they also show up as lost dollars on the bottom line. And then we're also looking at these manual processes resulting in wasted resources. So if we think about the amount of time that inspectors spend filling out forms by hand, and if you're like me and you like math, we're going to go through some fun calculations and we'll get into some real numbers. You know, after the field folks gather all that information, the project engineer is then going to have to duplicate that effort in the office. And so we're looking at these highly skilled people being tied up in admin work that I know that you guys don't really want to do, that busy work, instead of focusing on the tasks that truly drive project success. And then finally, the largest impact is on forecasting and cost control. So when the data is delayed or it's incomplete or it's inaccurate, project leaders are forced to make guesses, and those guesses increase the risk of blown budgets, of strained client relationships, and surprises that we don't really love at the end of a job. So the story is kind of pretty clear for us. Disconnection is not just an inconvenient thing, it also directly affects profitability, predictability, and the ability to deliver projects with that set confidence. Okay, so as I mentioned, I really like math. And I think that what is really helpful is kind of walking through actual client case studies. So I'm not listing the client here, but this is an actual, this is something I was working on with a client, and this is not just unique for this client. I have heard this story many, many times. We're going to focus on this specific example. So I worked with a client, and this organization, this general contractor, had 8 full-time inspectors in the field. So each of those inspectors were responsible for completing about 8 material delivery logs per day, okay? And then these logs were all handwritten on paper. So at the end of the week, what these inspectors would do is they would go to the job trailer, they would scan these reports. Maybe they're taking photos of them with their phones, or maybe they are actually using a scanner and uploading them. But then they're going to scan that image in. They might have to download it onto their computer then, but then they're going to upload it into Dropbox. So these are a lot of little tiny little steps these folks have to do. And that sounds really simple, but in reality, that's incredibly not efficient, right? And in doing that, about 10% of their reports were going missing and never made it into Dropbox at all. And we can imagine that, right? You throw stuff in the back of your truck, you lose sight of it. I don't know where half my belongings are at any time. So this organization was losing about 10% of their material delivery logs. Okay, so then on the office side, once those logs had been uploaded into Dropbox, the project engineer that was responsible for, doing all the financial tracking of deliveries on site, that project engineer, or maybe in other instances that might be a project manager, that person's going to be left with the really fun task of downloading all of those forms at the end of the month. And then that person had to review every single one. A lot of times there's missing information, things like project numbers, maybe we knew what the item description was, but we don't know the associated line item with that. Maybe we don't know what the unit cost is. Maybe the unit type is erroneous, right? They've got to kind of revise a lot of information, fill in those missing gaps, and then they manually have to enter the materials, quantities, and costs into whatever system that they were using for their financial tracking. So we think about the risk here, right? If a form maybe didn't have a signature, there's no way to clarify questions with that field inspector who originally filled it out. And so what that means is our project manager is going to have to guess or skip a lot of that data altogether. And the results of that was about 12 to 15% of this organization's data was either missed or it was entered incorrectly. And it didn't stop there. So after the upload, the financial tracking, the invoicing process, all of that takes about a full week. That's roughly, we're going to see on the next slide, about 224 hours of effort that this person is spending, this PM is spending every month to complete this task. And so that's a ton of time that, again, is not really being utilized for fun stuff, just basic admin stuff that I think that we can streamline with some tools that I'm going to talk about in a second. So I think that this case study paints a pretty clear picture that without connected digital workflows, valuable field data is going to get lost. Our errors are going to creep into our financial information, and we've got really, really dedicated and smart experts, right, that are utilizing their time to do more just admin roles and responsibilities that they didn't sign up for. That's not what we go to work to do. Okay, so let's attach some numbers to this, right? Again, this was a specific customer or client, but what I'm doing here in terms of like how much I'm expensing, field inspectors out and PMs, I'm just kind of using national averages in here, but let's put some numbers behind this challenge. So in the field, we've got each inspector spending about 5 minutes per form. So if they have 8 forms a day, that's 40 minutes per inspector per day. And then we're going to multiply that number across those 8 field inspectors that I mentioned for this organization. And now we're talking about more than 5 hours every single day just to fill out material delivery logs. So at an average labor rate, again, just national average of $25 an hour for those field inspectors, that's going to start adding up really fast, right? Over the course of a year, that total cost is about $34,000, and that is just for manual form completion. I haven't even uploaded anything into Dropbox yet. I'm just writing stuff down on paper. So we know that the inefficiency doesn't stop there, right? At the end of every month, then each of those 8 inspectors has to scan and upload those reports. So they have 168 reports per inspector per month. And if each of those reports takes about 5 minutes to scan and upload collectively, that's about 14 hours per inspector per month. And so across the team of 8 inspectors, that's going to come out at about 112 hours every month. And that's going to cost about another $2,800 per month, or if we multiply that by 12, about $33,600 per year. So now I'm combining those two pieces, the time to manually fill out the reports in the field, plus the time to scan and upload those forms later. And the annual cost of that manual process is about $67,000 per year. And that is just the cost of the field team. So that doesn't include the downstream impact on the project engineers and managers in the office. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but just thinking about the field cost, right? Okay, so now let's go and look at the office side of this. So every month, we've got 1,344 forms generated by those 8 inspectors, and that's all going to land on the desk of this project engineer or project manager. So that's over 16,000 forms per year that one person, this person was not super stoked at this organization, but that one person is going to have to process all of those forms. And it's not just a matter of downloading them. Each form has a lot of attention that needs to be thrown at it, right? So we've got about, and I'm making some guesses here, but I'm thinking about 1 minute to download and organize that form. This is for each form. Maybe 3 to 5 minutes to fill in any missing information. So that might be things like project numbers, that might be line item codes, associated costs. Say maybe another 3 to 5 minutes to manually enter that data into their financial system. And then sometimes, 1 or 2 more minutes of clarification. So if maybe there are names or signatures that were missing, and then, the project manager has to maybe make some guesses or go reach out to some people, I'm going to add a few more minutes in there. So on average, I'm going to say it's between 8 to 12 minutes per form for this project engineer, project manager to process, quote unquote, each of those forms. So I'll take a midpoint of 10 minutes per form. And that's going to equal about 224 hours every month that's just spent processing paperwork. So if we put that into perspective, 160 hours is a full-time employee month. So this one process alone is consuming the equivalent of 1.4 full-time months on effort every single month just for form analysis. So I'm going to apply a reasonable cost now, right? I'm going to say a project engineer's average rate of maybe $45 an hour. And again, I'm just using nationwide averages. That's going to come out to more than $10,000 a month, or $121 almost $1,000 a year just for manual review and re-entry of field forms into their financial system. And I want you to keep in mind that this is time spent not on managing projects at all, or engaging with clients or coordinating trades, none of that really valuable stuff. It's spent on fixing data gaps and typing information from one system into another. So that cost of disconnection in the office is incredibly significant. And when that's combined with the cost of the field, paints a pretty clear picture on how expensive manual processes really are. So of course, we're going to take a look at that combined field and office burden, right? So again, when we put those numbers together, the true cost of disconnection really does start to become undeniable. So on the field side, we've got, again, our inspectors spending time every day manually filling out logs, scanning and uploading them at the end of the month. That work alone is going to cost the organization around $67,000 a year. We look on the office side, we've got project engineers and managers. Those folks are forced to step in to clean up those forms. They're filling in those missing details, as we mentioned, manually entering costs and trying to reconcile any information gaps that we have. And that burden is going to add up to another around 121 grand per year. So when we combine those two pieces, that total annual cost of disconnection is more than $188,000 per year. And again, this is a real general contractor I was working with, and these are accurate numbers for that organization. And then I want you to remember that this is just one client example, and these folks just have 8 field inspectors and they have 1 project manager. So if we scale that across multiple projects or multiple offices, that impact is going to compound super, super fast. And it's not just a dollar value. So I know I'm really focused on how much this is costing an organization, but it's also these inefficiencies mean lost visibility into our costs. They mean missed revenue opportunities. And they also, again, mean that we have got super skilled employees spending hundreds of hours on tasks that don't really add a tremendous amount of value. So instead of focusing on managing risk or building client relationships and delivering successful projects, we've got folks just kind of doing more clerical work than anything that's really just being created by disconnected systems. So the takeaway that I want to leave you guys with on this slide is that disconnection is not just an inconvenience, it really is kind of a six-figure problem, especially in this instance, right? And so solving this doesn't just save money, it's going to free up time and talent to focus on the work that truly drives projects forward for your organization. Okay, a couple other things I want to talk about before we get into a little bit of a live demonstration there. So now that we've looked at the true cost, the actual numerical cost of disconnection, I want to talk about where gaps lie and what a connected workflow can deliver instead. So in many organizations, we have field forms, then they all live in a very standalone space, right? They're disconnected from the rest of our project processes. So you've got delivery logs, you have things like timesheets, inspection reports, those are all captured in one space, and then that information kind of just dies there. It doesn't connect to cost tracking or any kind of financial tools. And what that does is create a break in the flow of information. And because of that break, we've got cost information that has to be manually re-entered into your finance system. And that's a time-consuming process that not only wastes your resources, it also opens the door to errors, because when we have to re-enter anything, we're human, and some of us have, I'm just got larger fingers than other people, so I might hit the wrong numbers, and then, we've caused a lot of errors there. So when forms are incomplete, maybe they're missing project numbers, codes, or again, unit costs, that problem is going to compound. Project engineers and project managers are going to spend hours trying to fix or interpret those errors, and all of that is going to lead to financial or delays in financial visibility, and that's often going to force decisions to be made without having the right data in front of us, right? We can't make those educated decisions because we're kind of just going off the information that we don't quite have, and we're making some guesses. And there's also going to be a lack of accountability in your current process. So when forms are unclear, we've got missing signatures, or we have inconsistently formatted forms, it's going to be really hard to trace who submitted what. And what that does is create risk if there are disputes, audits, or any kind of billing questions later on. So now I want to compare those gaps with a connected workflow. So when we have digital forms feeding directly into some kind of an integration hub like IMAGINiT Pulse, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, that data is going to be captured once, and then it's going to flow automatically into, again, in this specific example today, into cost management and financial systems. So required fields and drop downs are going to ensure that forms are complete and accurate from the very beginning of the process. We don't need to do scanning, we don't need to do uploading, we don't need to utilize Dropbox or any kind of space like that in this instance, and we don't have to re-enter things. Okay, and so what the result is going to be is real-time visibility into our project costs. So project managers, executives, they can see the financial impact of field activities immediately, not weeks later, not at the end of the next month. And because every entry is traceable and auditable, accountability is built in. So if I have questions around a form, I know exactly who I can go ask to find those answers. I don't have to make guesses, right, that could be wrong. And so on the left, we've got inefficiency, error, lag, and on the right, we've got accuracy, automation, and speed. And that is truly the difference between a connected workflow and technology gaps that we kind of see today. And it's why firms that make this shift are setting new standards for cost management in regards to the construction industry. All right, so one more slide for me, and then I will show you something exciting, or I think it's exciting. So up to this point, I've been talking about the pain points of disconnection, but now I want to take a minute just to look at what the connected solution actually looks like in practice, okay? And so this workflow is going to start in the field, right, where our inspectors and our project teams are going to capture that information in a digital aspect through FormsConnected. And that's what Tom introduced us to a little bit ago. We're going to take a look at what that actually looks like in just a second. So FormsConnected is going to be a tool that we're going to utilize instead of utilizing or using paper reports or having inconsistent formats, writing things down on paper, that stuff getting lost, never making it to the office. Forms are going to be standardized, they're going to be mobile friendly, they're going to be really easy to use. It's going to be very, very clear for your field folks what they need to respond to, what they need to fill out. And we're also going to take a look at utilizing IMAGINiT Pulse to pull in information from your Autodesk Construction Cloud hub directly into that form so that your field folks don't need to know every single piece of project information that needs to be included in that form. We're going to have that automatically built out. So I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And then from there, that data is going to flow seamlessly through Pulse, right? Pulse is that piece of middleware. If we have questions at the end, I can definitely dive more into what Pulse is, but for now, just know that it's a piece of middleware. It lives on the back end. It's nothing that you have to ever open or mess with. But what it does is it connects two pieces of software. So in this instance, we're connecting FormsConnected to the Autodesk Construction Cloud, more specifically Autodesk Build cost management. But Pulse is going to be that digital integration and automation platform. So Pulse, again, is going to act as a hub, and it's going to route information where it needs to go, ensuring that things like project details, line items, unit costs, quantities, all of those things are properly mapped out. What this is going to do is remove the burden of manual entry, and it's going to eliminate the errors and delays that we see in that manual process, right? And then finally, that data is going to be directly imported into, again, in this specific example today, Autodesk Build cost management, where project managers, project executives, they're going to gain real-time visibility into expenses, budgets, approvals. We can do invoices, pay apps, all of that from that space. So instead of waiting weeks for scanned reports to be processed, cost information is going to be available immediately. That's going to help support faster, more confident decision-making and stronger financial control. Okay, so that is what I'm going to cover today. So I'm going to go into a little bit of a demo here. What I'm going to do, perfect, I'm going to start sharing on my iPad. We practiced this, so hopefully I've got it right. Okay. All right. So I think, cool. Looks like I'm sharing. That's great. Okay, so before I hop into FormsConnected, FormsConnected is an app. It is something that we would need to build out these forms on our desktop computer first. But for our field inspectors, they're just going to use their mobile device. That could be their iPad. That's what I'm going to be using today. That could be their cell phone, anything in the field. But what we need to do first is create that form on our desktop. I'm not going to go through the process of creating a form. Already made one, and what I've done is I've assigned that form to myself. So I'm going to today, I've already go through the process as if I were a field inspector, and I'm going to fill out that form. What we're going to see then is what happens once that form has, we're going to take a look at what that looks like in Autodesk submitted in Build cost management. So we'll do that in just a second, but again, we're going to start with forms. So I'm for forms that I've been assigned to. So I think I'm still sharing. Okay, a little bit of a lag. It's like a little bit of a lag, so bear with me. But again, these are all forms that have been created beforehand, and then they've been assigned to me. So what's really nice is that we're only giving form privileges to the people that need to fill out those forms. We're not overwhelming them. It's very clear what forms they need to be filling out, all that good stuff. So for this example, I'm going to go I'm going to respond to my material delivery log. So let's say I'm on site today. We're getting a whole bunch of stuff delivered. This is my process now instead of having to use paper. So a lot of times our field folks know the project number because that is what they get paid off of, right? So we know the project number, but they often don't know the project name, the project location, you know, who the owner is, who the contractor is, but this is really good information that we need to have inside of this form. So what we've done here, again, we're utilizing Pulse middleware. That's that back end piece of software. You don't need to see, you know, if this is something that's of interest, we'll help you get all that developed and set up. But what I have in this instance is I have Pulse connecting to my Autodesk Construction Cloud hub, which means that if I'm in the field, I can click into my project number, and what I'm going to see here are all of the projects that are associated with my Autodesk Construction Cloud hub. Now, what I've learned in my time in construction is that our field inspectors tend to know what the project number is because that's what they get paid on, right? So they're going to probably know this number. If they don't know this number, maybe they know the project name instead, then we can just set this form up in a different capacity. But let's say that I know that this is for project PRJ1004. I'm going to click on that project number, and you'll notice that everything else on that project information page auto-populated for me, right? The project name came in automatically, the project location, the owner, and the contractor. All of that was auto-populated based off of my selection for the project number. And again, that is happening because of the connection from that piece of middleware, IMAGINiT Pulse, right, connecting to my organization's Autodesk Construction Cloud hub. Okay, so again, if I chose the wrong project number and it's actually 1008, we can see that the project name, the location, the owner, and the contractor, all of that gets automatically updated. So we're eliminating what your field folks need to know, right? And that was something I just focused on heavily. If there are gaps here, then the project manager, the project engineer, when they get these forms, they have to go through and fill out the rest of this information. But we're eliminating that from happening because we're gifting the field folks as much information as possible. So let's say that this is good. This is the project we're working on. They're now going to just hit next at the bottom of the screen. And this is where they're going to start tracking their materials. Now, today, I'm really just going to be focused on material delivery, but know that this is something we could be doing for equipment usage. You know, what equipment are we using? For how many hours did I use it? What's the unit cost of that equipment, right? We can have calculations set up that say, okay, if I used, you know, an excavator for 4 hours and the unit, you know, the hourly cost of that excavator is this amount of money, it's going to tell me what my cost was that day, right? Again, focused on materials today, but no, we can do time and equipment, all that good stuff. Will look very similar to this. Now, what I've done is I have all of the line items or all of the materials that are being utilized on this project. I've uploaded that as a CSV file into this form. And so that's basically reference data, okay? So if I'm on site, I'm going to add a new row. Something just got delivered to me on site, right? Maybe it's this, let's just say it's this sanitary sewer piping here, right? So I'm going to grab that. I know that that's what got delivered today, right? When I click on that at the top of my screen here, I can see what the item description is. That's what I just selected. But what happens is the item number, the unit price, all of that auto-populates for me based on what my selection was for that item description. So all your field folks have to know is this is the thing that got delivered. They don't need to know the item number. They don't need to know the unit type. They don't need to know the unit price. So they're gonna import what just got delivered. If they know the supplier or vendor, they can type that in there. They just need to know the quantity that was delivered. So let's just say it was 123 linear feet, right? If it's priced out at $34.12 as a unit price per linear foot, then that item price is going to auto-populate for me based on a calculation that I have set up in this form. Okay, and this is really important because this is the information that's going to be automatically pushed into our cost management space. Okay, if they need to put in a description of, you know, of that piping or maybe something specific about it, they can do that. If they need to capture a photo, they can do that. And the other thing that we have set up in here, and there's lots of different things that we can set up in here, but just as an example, if there is a specific sheet number in your drawing set that this delivery pertains to, right, based on the project I chose, I have plan sheets coming in based on, again, the project that I chose. So I'm in project 1008. These are sheets that are attached to that project. So I could say, okay, and this delivery pertains to sheet SS6. Okay, so they can hit done then, and they can add as many items as they need to this material log. So that would be the process again, right? They would go in, they would choose what's been delivered, and then that's going to auto-populate at the top of our screen here. The item number is going to be reflected, or is going to be auto-populated based off what the item description was, the unit type, the unit price, all that good stuff. So they can fill out as many as they want to. When they're done with tracking the materials, they're going to go to the next page here, and then we can do material approval. So instead of having a list of 200 questions and just, you know, hoping that they answer the right ones or not overwhelming them with 200 questions on a screen, they can choose the type of material that was delivered in this log. So let's just go ahead and say it was the piping, right? I'm going to choose that piping. Now what we're doing is utilizing conditional logic. So I'm saying, okay, I only want to see the material approval questions that pertain to this type of material. So they can hit next then, and then we're just going to have questions show up that again pertain to that type of material. They could grab as many as if they were all, if there were 10 different types of materials and they all got delivered in this log, they can grab all of them. And there's going to be a page for each of those specific material types. So they'll go through, they'll answer all these questions. These are totally customizable per your business, per the things that you care about, but they'll fill all of this out. They have any comments, if they want to add another photo, they can do that. And then once they're done with that, right, we can, as Tom mentioned, we can capture signatures, right? If we need to have this checked by someone, we can do all that. So once this form is done, they're going to hit next. This is going to create a PDF. And then from here, I'm going to have Lori stop sharing my iPad. I'm going to share my computer again. Perfect. All right. Okay. So from there, once they submit a form, what's going to happen is that's going to be automatically, of course, going to be automatically PDF'd. And then that's going to go into their Autodesk Construction Cloud project. So that PDF will live in there, as will all the cost information. So let me, great. Let me get my code here. 067943. Okay. All right. Okay. So again, that trigger that's going to be established by Pulse, and that's something that, again, we would help you set up. The trigger is going to say, once this form is submitted, a PDF of that form is going to be sent to a specific designated project folder inside of our project, and that cost information is going to go into cost management. So let's look at the first thing that's going to happen. I'm saying that in Docs, right, where we want to have kind of a repository of all of these forms so that we have an audit trail. I can see who filled out what. If there's photos, I can see all of that information. That PDF is going to go into our files in Docs if my internet will work. Okay, so what we would do in this instance, I have a folder set up for material logs. Now these are 3 logs that I did the other day, so it's not going to be the one that we just looked at, but it would be an automated process had I actually gone through and submitted that log. But as an example, here is a log that I filled out the other day. So for this company, they're called Summit Builders. I just made this up with ChatGPT, which is so cool you can do now. But we can see the different, there's the item description, right? So here's my material log. Well, first off, here's all the project information, right? So that's all in here. I've got the item description, there that is. There's the item number that's associated with the item description, supplier, vendor, the quantity, right? That's what they typed in. That's what our field inspectors typed in. There's the unit price, there's the item price, there's the description of work, and if they had a photo, right? So this document, this log is going to contain everything that was inside that specific report. So all those different item descriptions are going to be in here. So that's the first thing that's going to happen, is that's going to automatically be sent into document management to have as a repository. What's cool about that is if I scroll over to the right-hand side, I can see when it was uploaded and by who. So again, oftentimes in the field, we're just getting paper. Maybe someone doesn't sign off on it. I don't know who to go ask if I have questions. Here's that audit trail for me. Okay, so that's going to happen automatically. But the most important thing, I think, or what I'm really focused on, what I think is super cool in this workflow, is that cost information, those different line items, are going to automatically come into cost management. So if I go into, let's do this first. If I go into my cost here, my expenses, here are those forms that automatically came in for me, right? We just looked at document management. I had 3 forms in there. Here they are. I can expand them and I can see those materials that were delivered. So there are those materials. If I scroll over to the right here, I can see the budget, the item number that's associated with those, right? There's the budget name. If I keep scrolling to the right, there's the quantity, there's the unit cost, there's the total amount. All of this comes over automatically for me. So that massive workflow that I just talked about, where we've got the project managers have to, go into Dropbox, they have to download all 13,000 of these reports, and then they have to manually import them, automatically happening for me once that form is submitted. So here are those items. Here is, for example, the total cost of that delivery, 63 grand, right? It's just compounding these numbers here for me automatically. Same thing with these other forms here. There's the 3 items that were delivered in MDL material delivery log number 2, right? There's the item numbers, there's the quantities, there's the unit cost, there's the total amount. So I don't have to do anything. That's happening automatically for me via that piece of middleware IMAGINiT Pulse. So those numbers are coming in for me. So what I will do next, right? That process would be those are going to come in. They're going to come in as drafted. So as an example, this one I haven't submitted yet. So it's going to come in as drafted, and then I'm going to click into it, and I'm either going to approve it or not. So in this instance, I'm going to submit this for approval. And now if I click into it, I'm going to go through and I'm going to approve it. So I'm going to approve that payment. So from there, that status is changed. We can see that these are all approved now. Again, I didn't have to do anything to get this information into this space. Then I can go into my budget, and this is where I can see my actuals. Okay, so if I have a good memory, I think that one of our budget codes that we've submitted is 2211. So nobody get a headache with me scrolling, but here's one of my item descriptions, right, that I know is on one of those MDL reports. So if I look at 2211 and I scroll over to the right here, what I can see starting to come through are my actual costs, right? And if I dive into that even more, I can start to expand that. So if this item, if this PVC piping is on other MDLs, those are going to be automatically built out in here for me, and then I can dive in there and I can see the units and the, you know, the unit costs and how much is coming from these different material delivery logs. But this is how I can do my forecasting. This is where I can see my projected costs. This is where I can see variances if I have any change orders, right? All that's going to happen in here. My invoices can happen from here, my pay apps, all that good stuff. But again, this is automatically happening for me. So 2 days ago, I made those 3 forms. I submitted them. This information came in automatically for me. We again think about that very manual process, taking a ton of time, hours and hours and hours per month, per year, ton of money, ton of risk, because if I have to go through and type all of this in, there is no way that I am getting these numbers in here correctly every. That's what I'm personally going to choose to do. So I hope that this is a workflow that kind of resonates with you, that kind of makes sense to you. I hope it's something that yeah, is of interest. I think it's a really neat workflow. I think it's been needed in this space for a long time. But with that, let's see. I think, Lori, I'm going to go and go to this slide, and then I'm going to hand it. Oops, that's not it. I'm going to present from this last slide, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, Lori.
Do that. Okay, so Tom and Lisa, thank you so much for today. Again, for anybody who came in a little bit later, today's presentation has been recorded. I'll have it edited for you and up on our website tomorrow in the morning. So with that, thanks everyone. Have a great day, everyone.